Right? They were going, I can't believe they had the gall to go up to ZywOo and ask for a picture. Who said I went up to him? Oh! Did you hear that? Think about what I just implied there. Who said I went up to him? What if after that I went out and partied with him through the night? Suck mad. Right, this is another episode of Snake and Banter. Our guest for this one is a return guest. It is STYKO, who used to be a pro player, played in many different teams. Now he's an analyst. That's right. Basically, this show is like a multi-year, eventually it'll be half a decade long running humiliation ritual for me, where I have every other person that gets hired to do events as an analyst, while I don't get hired to any of the events and just have to pretend like that famous meme where the guy's like a smiling mask, but he's just crying underneath, like, I'm fine with it, yeah. Listen, I just enjoy you having a career too. Great. Actually, jokes aside, this isn't even fake. Although I wouldn't do it to be fake, except to be funny. But jokes aside, I actually do think STYKO is good on the desk, and I've told him as much as well. Although, by the way, low key, we'll start a second after this. I do also think he actually killed it with the recent interviews, because I did notice your style of answer you got from the pros and the coaches was different than I think other interviews would get. I don't know if it's because they vibe with you because you know them or you were a pro. I felt like they were giving you actual like little nuggets of like legit info, bro. I was low key shocked by some of them. Probably shouldn't even be giving you that, but fair play. Thanks, it was good.
Yeah, I do believe that they're feeling really comfortable around me. Whether it is mutual respect, whether it is the way I ask these questions, I'm not really sure most of the time what I'm doing. I'm just doing it, right? And I'm just kind of thinking what I would like to be asked when I was a player. I can't be bothered at answering similar question for the 30th time during the tournament. So this opens up the whole door for me. That I kind of get to vibe with these guys. First of all, I played against them or with them most of the time. And these new kids on the block, I love them as well because they kind of know me as a player who made it to a lot of majors and played in a great team. So there's a mutual respect, which opens up really, really cool answers from them.
See, I like to just imagine it's some anime angle where actually the whole time STYKO, whatever, was actually just this nice guy. He was on some like Littlefinger from Game of Thrones shit. It was actually him who this whole time was manipulating like the toxic teammates to do all the kicks and stuff. Then the whole time he was just like, yeah, people are just comfortable now. What can I say? You know, remove this guy, have him kicked immediately from the team. Like I like to imagine that alternate reality. What were you going to say, Maui?
I was just going to say that I think talking to players, usually the most disarming questions are surprisingly when you ask him more about the nitty gritty about the actual game. And when they know they can talk to somebody that can actually receive the answer, follow up with them on the conversation about, hey, what was happening with your guys' mid control? Wasn't really working out, was it? And then they just open up completely because that's all they're thinking about right when they're stepping off the server. They're not thinking about, oh, what's a good PR way to answer the question of how am I feeling right now? Like that, then you kind of like, they get kind of tricked into that sort of media training mode that they're not actually even comfortable with, and why sometimes you get these really dry interviews. But if you just kind of ask them out the gate, like, what the hell was going on? Those A execs were pummeling you, then they'll say something.
Well, speaking of teams having communication and feeling comfortable with each other, what's the opening take of the show, Maui? What we're going with here?
Mine is, I mean, I just feel like this is such a, I don't know if I want to say delusional, or I don't know how I want to describe this exactly, so I'll let you guys feast on this, but I'll give a take on it after I describe what I'm talking about. It's the long-form karrigan interview that he gave to HLTV. I think Note even said that this was a 45-minute interview, sit down, all transcribed. It's long. It's a really good one too, because he talks about all of his teammates, how he's coming into the team, explain the whole leaving FaZe. But there's one line that I picked up on, and we actually briefly touched on the broadcast today here at Astana, after, of course, they lost to 9Z, which is that karrigan says that he wants the team to look not at the Cologne Major, as he just says it's going to be a rough one, but he's looking at Singapore, which is in 7 to 8 months. 7 to 8 months. That's what he's considering his timeline for this team. And I just feel like that's just ridiculously long for how much investment has gone into this Falcons roster, and even looking at other teams that have ascended over the course of history. Man, 7 to 8 months is a really long time to try to ramp up. I feel like the way, maybe that's just something that kind of jumped to his mind where he decided, okay, you know, all he thinks about are majors. So all he cares about is the one that's coming next because he's going to give himself an excuse for this one. I still just think that's a little bit ridiculous because the vitality that we're seeing today, we're winning the biggest tournaments in the world in their second tournament. And it's different. It's different to move one player in, player out for an IGL. So I give him some grace on that sort of idea, but they're playing 2 tournaments before Cologne. They are... And the fact that he's not even really targeting some other event in the calendar, maybe that's just where his mind goes because he doesn't really know what the other prestige event in the year is, given that we kind of already, in a weird way, we've kind of burnt through a lot of the prestige events this year. Like we've done the Krakow, we've done Cluj, even Astana, which is kind of ramping up as one. You could probably shout out the like Blast Open event for the like the Porto event, I'd say as being like a competitive field event. But it's kind of weird that he just says like, oh yeah, like this is going to be a rough major. We're just coming in looking 7 to 8 months from now. I just feel like you're just giving yourself too long of a leash there to me. If you're karrigan coming into a Falcons roster that's supposed to be winning before you even got there.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it, on the counterpoint is that he's giving himself maybe this like psychological effect where they're just not having any real like expectations coming into the major. Which is like playing off pressure, and we're just not going to think about lifting a trophy right there and then. But also he's aware that when karrigan joins a team, he needs to put a lot of work to make his system work. It's not like you can slot whatever Falcons were cooking before and bring karrigan to that. No, karrigan will always bring his own DNA, and I think I've made this tweet when Falcons actually, when this deal went through, is that whenever karrigan joined another team, it took them 3, 4, 5 months to really unlock the potential or even be competitive in some of the tournaments that they were playing. Whether it was MOUZ before or when he joined FaZe, hell, even the Envious stint. Like, he got nothing done there because like it was pretty short period of time, right? But whenever this move happens and karrigan joins another team, he just needs a lot of time to build that structure from the ground up. So I'm giving him a leeway here. Why he's saying what he said in that interview, it does seem weird. I understand your point, Maui. It's just like a tool to play without any pressure on Cologne, probably.
I'm trying to find, do you know where in this interview it is? It's fucking enormous, Maui. Like, I need to have a break here. Like, where is it?
Just Control F Singapore. Just Control F
Singapore, right? Because I tried Cologne and it already had something else about that. Wait there a second. Singapore. Oh, right, yes, he actually does say that. He literally just says, we're looking at Singapore Major. That's the big one. Yeah, you're right. Okay. I'll tell you what's wild about this. One, this is so weird that karrigan of all people would put his foot wrong at this immediately in media. Because, as you say, like, bro, this isn't just like a throwaway line in like a short interview where, you know, it's post-game and he hasn't thought. This is like a sit-down, like he has loads of, by the way, these answers are enormous, some of these, like they're giant paragraphs, right? In theory, this looks like something he's thought about. And the worst thing about this is the way he says that, bro, not like, oh, personally, I'll only count this from the Singapore. He says, like, basically, like, when we have to look at Falcons and what we're doing in the project, okay, we're looking at the Singapore Major, right? Here's what's weird about that. That implies that he's actually repeating what the messaging within Falcons is. And karrigan himself, does he really not know this? Probably one of the least popular things Zonic has ever done was when he did that thing at the end of 2024 where he basically said something, or was it early 2025 when he basically made it sound like I'm just writing off the whole year. You remember what I'm talking about? Like, he said something that was sort of like, you know, this year won't be the, something along those lines. Like, that was probably one of the worst received coach comments I've ever seen, because people did take it not as like, you know, we won't be fully ready until then. People took it as like, this year doesn't count, so like, you know, don't judge me. And then everyone was sort of like, bro, it does, like it all counts. So I think the same thing here. What's so weird about this messaging is it undercuts what even the people hyped about the move, like about the move, which is that this is supposed to be a Hail Mary for this Cologne Major. Like, the idea is supposed to be, if we've all watched Falcons play, and the real irony is, even though they beat Vitality at that Rio event, the fact that the lineup without karrigan beat Vitality and they did nothing in the playoffs is exactly why people hate Falcons. Like, what they hate is on some mouse shit. It's like, we don't care what you could do. You never do it. You never actually win the tournament. So to me, loads of people's whole thing with karrigan was they had given up on the kicks and lineup winning this major. So the whole premise was, like, if you'd have sat me down and said, what's one crazy move you could make that actually could make us win the major tomorrow? And obviously, you know, I will put in the exception that I can't recruit Donk. If the only one is I can't recruit Donk and I can't take anyone from Vitality, the next crazy move is, fuck it, I don't know, bring karrigan in. Maybe he's like the only one who could take all these superstars and mess around and like make a major final or something. That sounds like something karrigan could do. do. So what's weird is karrigan himself's undercutting that. Before, by the way, this is before Tournament 1's even finished. In fact, this interview presumably was done before the tournament even began. So, like, that's a really weird thing to say at the outset, because as I say, to me, it goes counter to what your own fans and all the community expects. And then also, I'll throw this out there, it would make a lot more sense if this was the copium after you failed this PGL. And then it's like, oh shit, out the gate, actually, we had some problems. Like, if he'd have already known when he did this interview, they lose 13-1 to 9Z, yeah, that's not that crazy in an interview to go like, fuck, like a politician, which is why I think Zonic made that comment in the past. You just figure out a way to, again, what you think is like set fan expectations to be more reasonable to what you think you can accomplish, basically. It's like saying to your boss, like, oh, it'll just have to be done tomorrow, but we'll definitely get it done. It'll be better, in fact, if you let me finish it by 4 p.m. tomorrow, when the deadline was like today at 5 p.m. So I think that part's really weird. And then also, even though STYKO's saying here it takes like 4 or 5 months, if there was anyone though who you would think on paper, like again, if you do one of those scenarios, like the world explodes and we all die if Falcons doesn't win the Cologne Major, if there was anyone you thought could come in with these, because remember, the real premise of this team, I think it's why people hate on Zonic so much, is especially NiKo and MOUZ, the perception there is they already should have won majors, mate. Not like they need to learn something. They're already capable of doing it now. So if anything, we're not really talking about solve some grand equation. We're not much take these pieces now and use them effectively. So to me, I think this is such a bizarre thing to say. Like, I would have hoped he would have come in with the opposite attitude and come in with like we could win every tournament from the outset. In fact, I've told the guys, in fact, here's what's sad. The other things he's saying are like what I'm saying. Like, if you're going to do interviews as karrigan and comments and say things like, MOUZ's the best AWPer I've ever played with, then win the next tournament, mate. What are you talking about? Like, bro, you've played with them all. Like, you basically only haven't played with KDS and ZywOo. That's about it. Like, you've had them all. So at that point, if you've already got the best AWPer ever right now in his prime, don't know about you, mate. I'd maybe win this major. It's not even fucking tomorrow. It's in like a month or something in it. Like, are you having a laugh? Like, I see why you picked it as the ugly here, Maui, because it is just ugly. I don't know what upside there is to it. Even the whole angle, like I say, of Zonicus trying to be like, let's not make people think we have to win the first tournaments. No, sorry, karrigan, you do. Here's why. I don't get pissed. Everyone knows from our social media, I don't give a flying fuck about what Frozen and Twists thought when they woke up after themselves playing like shit and failing to make the major and going, what? karrigan doesn't have to live in the ditch and die with us. It's like, yeah, if I were you, mate, I'd be like, at least one of us made it, for fuck's sake. Good on you, mate. Hope you do well. We'll succeed without you. But here's what's weird about that. I tell you the one thing I do think is bullshit is leaving them being like, nah, but this major doesn't really count. Fuck off. It does. It does. The whole reason to do this move is that this major counts for Falcons, for you, karrigan, for Zonic, and for everyone. And by the way, I'll just throw this out there at the end. I'll tell you what's really ugly about this. Despite what he says elsewhere in the interview about how this isn't a short-term move, it isn't just for 3 months, it isn't just for 6 months, it's like another full contract. It isn't, bro. I'm telling you right now, if you come last place at that major, you might as well just fucking get ready for your retirement. That's the end. Like, you will be fired. You will get kicked out. Everyone will hate your guts. And so whether you think it or not, I'm resetting everything you just said there. Delete, take it back. This major counts. It especially counts for you because of the circumstances you've left in. You've basically left as if, by the way, that's even what by the way, if you actually read the interview, he also does comment on this thing about Twist and Frozen, where basically he is right, by the way. No matter what you think, he is 100% right. You can't, if that move isn't 100% done, go to your team and go, hey, I'm the IGL, but I'm actually going to leave to a better offer. Oh shit, actually the offer didn't happen. I'm back. Like, that would instantly destroy all trust in the team ever going forward. Everyone would know you didn't want to be there. But the other way around, if you imagine he had gone in and said that, if he comes in, the only thing that makes it acceptable to leave is goes, boys, I could win the major with this team. Like, I've got to go. You know how it is. Like, I couldn't quite. You can't go, this one doesn't even count, though. I'm just leaving you now to get warmed up. That is whack. That is whack. So I'm with you, Maui. I think it's an ugly point. I think you've nailed it. Okay. There's one time I'll speak against karrigan. He fucked this one up, boys. It's all good. It's all good. Right, okay.
He's gotta, I think he's got to just make something happen pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I know that
Wait there a second.
I guess... what, am I lying?
Oh, yeah, you're back.
Okay, yeah, no, dude, this hotel internet is just terrible. Like, I'm just telling you right now. Like, I was, like, nodding along as I'm not even sure what you're saying half the time. Okay. Yeah, like, I mean, the thing with this also is that I think when you're at they have two tournaments that they're warming up in, and I feel like both of them are ones where Falcons are going in as the favorites. Okay?
Yeah,
like,
why not?
It's them coming into this tournament. There were 3 teams that I think had a chance of winning it. It's whether Furia powers back up, whether karrigan actually helps Falcons out, or if Spirit is actually moving forward incrementally but positively. And I think that it's well within reason, especially with the track record that Nico and Mauisnake have against Spirit and Donk, that they should be able to even take them down, like in a head-to-head matchup. And then you're kind of just, in a weird way, worried if Furia rekindles some of the flame that they've had in bursts this year, but mostly during last year. And so I don't really see... I see the idea for sure about, like, yes, karrigan, and all IGLs for that matter, it will take them some time, but then to write off Cologne after it's your third tournament already, generally speaking, I think in modern CS, we're kind of learning what a team is within 2 to 3 months, and that's faster than this timeline for sure. But you have a team that's already a contender coming out the gates. Like they already are the team that has beaten Vitality twice this year with stand-in. So I just think that the goal should just be higher. Like that line itself is my big issue with it, even though I can agree that maybe the peak of this team is in 3-4 months, but if you're already contending, you should set your sights just a little bit higher than just saying, oh, in 8 months we'll be the best.
And there's a hidden message as well to what karrigan said is, you don't go into the major looking on the trophy if you had not win any trophy with this roster prior to that major, right? And in the second, let's assume that they're probably not going to win Astana, they're not going to win Cologne, obviously, you never know. But for the second part of the year, you eventually have like 4 events prior to that major, right, where Falcons are probably going to attend. Obviously, it's not confirmed, but I imagine they're going to be like at EPL, maybe EWC, IC, one more Star Leader tournament, whatever it might be, right? So they're kind of putting themselves in a position where they have to win at least one of those events. And right now, they're just not strong enough. They're just not strong enough, and no one is really to challenge Vitality. Maybe they will just pick tournaments where Vitality are not going to be.
Okay, STYKO, what is your ugly point then?
All right, so my ugly point, I don't want to sound really spoiled about this, but the way CS2 updates are shipped is, in my opinion, flawed in a way. And I want to elaborate on this because I have actually like real game scenario that happened. And in my opinion, the amount of updates which we are getting lately is great. I like it as a player. I still play pretty much every day this game, even though I don't compete. But that is why I realized that the way we introduce them is pretty poor, because a lot of the details are just not in the patch notes at all, and it's so hard for players to realize what is even being changed. It's so vague. I will give you an example. If there is an update in a game like League of Legends, right, you have all the details when it comes to like differences in cooldowns, differences in damage. It goes to incremental points. But if we have a cache update and the bomb radius is increased, I want to know without going to the server how much it increased roughly.
Okay.
You know, it's like there's nothing is happening. Like I need to actually go test everything properly. And then you have like various clipping issues. Like, bro, I know that the clipping sucks around vent position on cache. Did they even fix it? I don't know if it's part of the various clipping issues. Is that something different? Like, is it even fixed? Like, I rely on Twitter people and Reddit people to make a video about the update, what changed, because I have no freaking clue from the notes that I'm reading, because I do read them, and yeah, I'm probably one of the few guys, but I actually want to know what changed before I queue into the game. So now there was this problem, right, with anim graph coming in. And the way like smokes were broken a little bit, and they didn't line up correctly. And there was this game, Vitality against FUT, in the recent tournament in Blast, and obviously Vitality lost their streak on Dead Dust 2. Go watch Dead Dust 2 and count how many door smokes on Dust 2 on top of the door were thrown and how many of them were missed. Like, it's unreal that only one smoke, which Messi threw, was correct one, and everyone else failed. That's why Apex was frustrated the whole game. That was the famous.
This is definitely because of the upgrade. Is it like confirmed? It's because of the update.
Yes. And it was the update because the animations, like the way you are on a sloped surface, like you are hitting the certain threshold, and then your smoke is failing. It's slightly different. Everyone is failing. I'm not attributing it that they lost because of this, but it's just different game. Like, how do you play Dust 2 when all of a sudden, like, your crucial essential smoke is constantly missing? And it happened to FUT players too, by the way, when the sides got swapped. So all I'm saying is, I don't defend the players. ZywOo should definitely go on the server and check it out. But if the patch notes doesn't say anything about Dust 2 changes or about the way smokes behave, why would he, right? Why would he go ahead and check all his hundreds line of smokes? Like, it is pretty bonkers to me. So that's why I get unreasonably mad about this. I'm not even sure. Maybe I'm spoiled because right now people are like, oh, finally we're getting updates. Yes, but the delivery on them is freaking lackluster. Like, this feels like a beta game.
It's a great point. I remember, well, I think in a recent Talking Counter episode, they also mentioned the fact that at one point in time, throwing nades through your teammates just became something that just went through them, and that
but no one knows when it was changed, right? It just happened out, and no one just noticed one day, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's just like a Mandela effect.
I know it is.
The game. If there's no documented history of it actually happening or changing, was it even there before? No, we all knew what we experienced in that capacity. I think it's actually a great point. I hope that Valve devs can explain things a little bit more. I remember personally when I was playing way more consistently that I would learn things from different YouTubers a lot of the time who would go into the patch notes and then they would show the clipping differences with like whatever the draw feature is in the game, where instead of it showing textured surfaces, it just showed like clippings or like just smooth slants or whatever it is. Yeah. And that's oftentimes where I would even figure things out just by watching those and then experiencing it in the server on top of that. But they do just change things sometimes, and you're kind of wondering, wasn't that a little bit different before? Because it'll mess up some grenade lineup, as it did for Vitality and everybody on Dust 2 for a while. It's a great point. I don't know if I have too much more to add on that, but it would be nice to have just a little bit more clarity on patch notes so that there aren't these kinds of confusions.
The obvious main problem we experience in Counter-Strike is this is another example of where the one thing actually people who are reasonable in Counter-Strike have begged Valve for the entire time CSGO has existed, and they've been actually hands-on, as opposed to 1.6 where they basically they're like the deist conception of a god who just started the game at the beginning and then went away and we never saw them and no one remembers if they ever existed, but someone must have started the game. In the modern day, when in theory we know they do updates and changes and they run the majors and things like that, right? All everyone's ever asked them for, literally, not even to do anything differently, is just give us what's called a community liaison person from Valve who communicates things to the public. And I think this is a perfect example of exactly that, because one of the problems we have in CS is they act like there is no pro scene to the game. Like, we're all just playing a casual game and they did an update. Okay, adapt to the update. It's like, whereas in this case, the point we're making is, bro, every 2 or 3 weeks we have a LAN, and these LANs have like massive prize purses and they mean things to people's careers. Like that match, actually, by the way, that's not just frustrating because you lost the game. You gave up an amazing win streak on probably maybe the best team ever on the best map for them ever. Lost the game, not totally, but at least it was aided by the fact that there was an update where they couldn't really know how that would be affected. And so these players in Spawn are throwing smokes that I'm pretty sure probably just land every other time and it would have been totally fine. And then if you'd lost just on a normal game, fine. But if you lose in that scenario, you feel like you lost to Valve as well, if you know what I mean. Like, that does feel a bit rough. So first of all, I just wish they either, like you say, had a way to communicate to pros or tell people like going in advance. Like, by the way, we did change this on the update though, so watch out if you're playing a game in 3 days. I'll give you actually a really weird, because I obviously don't do this very often. Normally in League of Legends, I'm known as the guy who thinks everything Riot Games does is shit and they're an idiot and they don't know what they're doing and they're close. But I'll tell you one area actually where they've also done a very, very good job is, believe it or not, they have probably the best patch notes in esports, because what they do on their patch notes, but this will actually blow your mind, Maui, is they don't even just list all the things they've changed. In the modern day, they even actually have like a color-coded thing where they tell you if it's a buff or a nerf. Like, they've actually got like mad detail, and you can even get things now where they have like design team people who'll make content talking about the recent patch and think exactly what STYKO was talking about, basically. Like, tell people if you play this champion, you'll expect this thing to happen. And in doing so, they even let slip another thing I wish we got from Valve devs, which is just give a little bit of a reason as to why you made the move. I'm not saying like, we're not treating like you're in court and I'm going to hold everything you say and just, no, I just want to know, like, what was the motive? Like, did you need to nerf this because this thing was too powerful? Did you want to, like in this case, by the way, if they just told you Actually, that's a thing that when we looked at Pro CS, we thought was a little bit too simple, is people could just throw this particular smoke and then it spoiled just 2 T-side or something. So we made it so it'd be harder to... That, at least there'd be a logic to it there. Then you'd know, like, right, where's their head at and what should we adapt accordingly? Because, no, I'm with you. I agree. That's one of those things that's always been nightmare fuel for me. We're lucky it's almost never happened, which is it's very rare that ever actually has been an update that fundamentally changed something that we then played a tournament on. And then history won't ever remember, by the way, that patch happened then. Remember, no one in their head can track the patch versus the game. But luckily, it's never decided a major, as far as I know. You know, in theory, it would generally been pretty lucky. But if they keep going with the approach they do currently, one of these days, something that's going to happen, mate. It's going to make someone lose a tournament or not qualify to a major. By the way, that would be a nightmare one right there. What if it happened during the FaZe versus Big match, the Big loss, and then FaZe made it to the... There's all sorts of crazy implications. What were you going to say, Maui?
Do you think that in the long run for all developers, though, it's beneficial to have somebody like that? I'm kind of thinking like Jeff Kaplan for Overwatch. Was it all... I mean, like... I think that Riot has done things with Valorant also, where they have somebody that speaks on behalf of the patch notes or whatever. And I think I don't interface with League whatsoever, so I couldn't say there. I just felt like not always were those people the most well received, depending on but maybe it was more just due to what the patch was versus putting a face to it.
I would just say it's more that
probably has a fear of that.
Like any job, like a politician, if you're the face of a thing that people don't like, they're going to flame you. But it's still better that you have someone who can communicate, essentially. To me, if it's just a faceless corporation putting things out, say, who the fuck knows? At that point, it's even harder to know what we're doing here and what we're trying to accomplish, you know.
Yeah,
okay.
I think Kaplan had like a big reveal when he was announcing his new game about what it was like to be that face of that guy.
Okay.
And you kind of just you get hit with some abuse too, because some people are really angry.
I mean, here's the crazy idea: maybe pay that guy well. You know?
Yeah, I think he was.
When you're making billions of dollars as a company,
new game.
Crazy idea. Maybe just pay the guy whose job it is to take all the shit, like a good salary. That he knows what he's doing. You know, it's whatever it is.
That's why Zonic is compensated well.
It is. Right. That's why he was right. He is the bag. Probably going to go down as one of the worst aged comments of all time in light of the earlier one too. Right, okay, My Ugly, watch this, Maui. If you think your shit's self-serving, My Ugly is a point that's expanded further in a new show on my channel, the Thorin YouTube channel, called Roster Mechanic, episode 1, and it's me and Loz Raposa, that nerd guy who's doing all the stat stuff. Basically, me and him are doing a show where, like the name says, Roster Mechanic. We either look at like a roster move that did happen and try and guess at, what will change with the roles and think, we'll look at things like, the joke would be 2 months ago, I would have done this about Falcons or FaZe. Like, what should they change in the roster? What could you change? And obviously, people know his skill set. He was on STYKO and Banter not that long ago. His whole style is a bit like a Nero type person. He's not just doing stats, he's like modeling them as well and trying to come up with his own. Like, he has a thing called dual swing as opposed to round swing. So anyway, the point is, he's able to generate interesting graphs and stats things that, like, I think are like either supplementary to or even change the conversation. And one of the things he found, I didn't see this myself. I will make an admission that sadly most dickheads never will, which is one of the biggest problems we all have when we look at rosters in Counter-Strike, is we all model a team in Counter-Strike based on the T-side, whether we do it consciously or not. So we all talk about the roles, they're all T-side roles, by the way. Then we all talk about how the roles are going to interact, they're all T-side roles. We talk about how the calling's going to work, that's all the T-side. What we never do at the end, and this is what fucks a lot of pro teams up, you'll see where I'm going with this in a second, is we don't stop and go, what CT spots do they all play? And in fact, here's a better one, what CT spots are they capable of playing? The latter one's an even more important point, by the way, because there's plenty of teams that have done the correct T-side move that made sense in their system, but then they've found out, like, wait a minute, we have 3 anchors, or shit, we have no anchors. So here's the point I'm going to make. On this first episode, we looked at the new MOUZ roster, which technically even has 2 different versions, doesn't it? It has JL standing in at first, then Brolan comes back for Cologne, and actually no one even knows for the second season what the 100% move is. Presumably, it's implied maybe JL's on trial, maybe someone else can replace him. It's implied Brolan won't be returning, but we don't really know yet. And so since for this move, especially, there's so many pieces going, essentially you can going to see what My Ugly piece is. I would have thought the biggest problems in this team were things like, right, Exertion has to become the IGL, or Zelix is 17 years old and he's joining a team where you have to be in like a semi-finals of the major or something right out the gate. No. Those Reposer has pointed out, and you can watch the episode for way more info on this, he actually thinks the worst part about the MOUZ moves is that they're removing impact. And here's why. Because basically, when you look at the CT positions they play in MOUZ, he has almost the worst CT position on every single map. He is basically the anchor, like the pure, hard bullshit, like Mirage B type anchor, on almost every single map in the pool. And so even though, what's funny is, again, if you look from the T side, I was on board with removing him, because as a lot of people have finally observed, the big effect of bringing Spinks in is he ate up some of those lucky spots that Impact used to be able to play on T-side. So on T-side, he did look like his impact had gone. But essentially, it's possible, based on this, is why I'm also teasing it in the other episode, it's possible that, like, when you consider the main strength of MOUZ was their CT sides, they might essentially just have taken, like, they might have just unplugged a giant leak in their ship, which, listen, maybe they can still end up being better. That's why I picked it to be ugly, not bad. Who knows yet? Who knows how it could turn out? But put it this way, spoiler, GL definitely can't play all these roles on every map. I don't know. In fact, since he pointed out, like, when you go and look at the score of them, they're almost the worst roles on every single CT map. There are very few players in Tier 1 Counter-Strike play that many bad spots. Usually you play, like, even if you're the worst, even if you're STYKO, you have a couple of maps that you get a spot that's decent on. You don't really play the worst on every map. So I want to know, Speaker, what do you think of this angle? Because it's one that I hadn't considered myself, but even though MOUZ looks okay in the opening matches, I'm certainly going to be paying attention to it, because I kind of feel like if you really did take out sort of like the insurance policy, as it were, things could go really badly.
Definitely, what you're saying about the roles is what kind of boggled my mind as soon as they announced the JL move. And even when you look at Xelix, like when he got promoted into positions where he just cannot get a lot of resources.
Yes.
And in MOUZ Academy, MOUZ NXT, right? So he was by far the most, like, resourceful guy.
The whole team was built around him, as far as I know, right?
Yeah, it was definitely that he was the playmaker. He was probably most suited for that, and it makes sense that he got the call up to play for the main team. However, I still have to say that how they're utilizing him is way different, and it makes this whole learning curve of Tier 1 for him even that steeper. Because not only he has to learn how to play against way better opponents, he has to learn how to play with less. And that is a hidden thing that Xelix probably thought about, and they're trying to accommodate him, but a lot of fans, they will simply ignore. They will just compare his stats in MOUZ NXT, compare them with MOUZ when he's on the real roster, on the main roster, and then they will compare, like, okay, this guy's good, this guy's not good. So there's a lot of hidden stats that, thanks to mechanic that you explained, Thorin, and Loser Post out that you're doing, that it kind of shows, and it's clear through the graphs, and it's just kind of like easier to read all these roster moves. When I look at the JL and Anchor, it just doesn't fit. The guy is like in a good way too ADHD to hold an angle for freaking 45 seconds and not do anything about that. Okay, some players are like that, and you can play proactive, not lurkers, but anchor position. You can play that. However, it's way more, punishing, and it's super readable if you're just suited to that style. Meanwhile, Jimmy, actually, funny thing is, at IEM Rio, I did a full demo review with Jimhat on his game on Dust 2, where he was playing B-side. Absolutely atrocious, by the way, side. But the way I picked his brain and he explained his decision-making in a game where he wasn't playing particularly well when you look at the stats, but he had a lot of action, it kind of made me admire him in a way that he just kind of understands the risk and reward, and he is that team-oriented guy. Even if he doesn't look like it, maybe you don't get that aura coming out of him that he's like he plays for the good risk reward and risk management. It does clearly bother him when he's making a bad play when it was not needed, and he's very self-reflective around that. He mentioned it a couple of times. To me personally, I'm not sure if it's going to be in the final content piece that that ESL is going to put out, but I do admire him, and I don't think JL can plug that hole, as you said, Thorin. This doesn't matter that JL cannot be an upgrade in a way. However, it's going to be way less consistent, okay? His A to C game on an anchor role is going to be way, way stretched compared to someone like Jimmy, which is natural. I mean, the guy had way more experience, but eventually I see if JL will get picked up by MOUZ, he's not going to play anchor roles, I hope.
I think the point as a whole of just how when we think of teams, it is pretty true that a lot of times you think of who's the aggressive rifler, who's like the lurker, Obviously, the IGL is going to fill into certain positions. Opera is going to do stuff with the pack a lot of the time. Then you kind of have your like mid-round kind of guy too. Whatever. It is true. I think you frequently do frame rosters like that. I think sometimes nowadays people can get. I think sometimes the role discussions get a little weird because people act like switching from like A long A on Dust 2 is so bad to switch to like B anchor. It's like these are both kind of bad positions in my opinion. Yeah. Like, but so that's kind of where I think the role cell kind of name comes in, where you just get too obsessed with it as if every swap is crazy. But yeah, I think there's that one. I think another one that was kind of telling recently actually is in the karrigan interview, where he said all he cares about is T sides. All he cares about is T sides. Like, sure. There's a whole other half here that you kind of have to worry about too. And Falcons are going through some of their growing pains right now with karrigan instead of Kixan, who was, by the way, like a really commendable CT side player in a lot of pretty tough positions. I think MOUZ will probably face that later. I have a bad point later that's on a team that also seemed to overlook some of these aspects. So yeah, it just seems like that's all too frequent. And I think that the truth is that you're never going to really have a team that's going to fit on paper all 5 players always getting what they have always played throughout their whole career. So there's always going to be a give. There's always going to be a take. There's always going to be some priority orders that have to be ironed out. Sometimes teams deal it in different ways. Sometimes one guy gets all the bad spots. Some teams kind of swap it up where they rotate them around a little bit. But generally speaking, I think teams like Vitality have shown that it's best if like all the star player gets all the star spots, or it just stays consistent between maps. Like Mezi, I don't think Mezi has anything I would consider a good spot. I don't think there's any single position that all of his spots are bad, and that works for Vitality, and it works for him because he's really adept at those kinds of things. But I think that kind of game of musical chairs for who gets the bad spot is not really a recipe for success in the long run. So yeah, I agree. I think it's ugly that they left Yimpat out. I don't know, speculating of course, but I thought it was probably because some sort of offer was supposed to come in for him. Like he was supposed to move on to some other team, but I haven't heard any rumblings yet.
Now, put it this way, that would make it more forgivable if that is true. Like, if he really is secretly joining Falcons and says, okay, I'll give him a break then. If he isn't, though, if they really just kicked him out the door, I think they might find that he was doing a lot of, like, hard work that no one else wants to do. Also, 2 other quick things. Since we're referencing this insanely long karrigan interview, there's also 2 other details that are just really weird in it that I'm going to throw in here. So, one is in like with what Maui was saying. They said Nico handles calling on the CT side. Brother, your whole thing right now is to make it clear that there's no power struggle between you and Nico. He's on board with you. If the idea, like, you arrive, like, well, he's only letting me do things. You may as well just have said it like that, you mad fuck. And then the other thing is as well, in this interview, because Note, by the way, is doing a very good job being in touch with the community and finger on the pot, he addresses that thing that I've been laughing at on Twitter, which is, again, because they know, listen, these guys are smart. karrigan and Nico know that we all think they hate each other and have problems and can't get along. So they were like, hey, let's squash the beef. Take a photo together, show them we like each other. You all know what Nico's face looked like on that one. It's like someone said to Nico, make the smallest smile it's possible for a human to make imperceptible to a camera. Because it's like, and I guess in a way it's possible, like, he's not being beaten or something, but it's not like he couldn't even do a fake, so he couldn't do anything, right? And they even addressed that in the interview. You go check it, and karrigan just completely sidesteps the whole issue and just says, like, I have no problems with Nico. But he doesn't address the photo, though, because even he was, this looks like ass, bro. Like, why are we even sending that out? By the way, why is the cameraman should take another one, Nico, but can you just smile on this one? Like, I don't get what's going on. The worst thing is, I don't want it to be that there's any secret drama, but bro, this is like Stranger Things. You know how in Stranger Things, during the day, it's just normal 80s and like, just walking around going to school, but then every time it gets dark or that someone's alone, evil lurking out, and so that's what's going on every time. I want it to just be it's a normal team. The whole time it's like the fucking Nico karrigan thing's just coming up, the smoke's coming up, a tentacle comes out. Get that back under the trap door. There's nothing going on there. What do you mean? I didn't see it. Tentacle. What are you talking about? The team's gonna be fine. Yeah, we're going for the Singapore Major. Whatever. This whole thing's a nightmare, bro. But I'll tell you what. I'll tell you right now. Everyone who does content like talk shows, we're gonna eat so good off this Falcons mess. Just get ready. Win or lose, this next 6 months is going to be cinema. Anyway, Maui, if people do want to eat good and listen to some straight fire talk on a talk show, what is a way they could enhance that experience?
Well, obviously, they could upgrade their earbuds. So this message is sponsored by Raycon, and so they could be using. I'm using the Everyday Classics, but they could be using the open earbuds, which are great if you're especially fond of biking while using your earbuds, so that you can hear everything that's going on outside. Or I would say I've liked those kinds of earbuds for enjoying just taking walks in nature where you want to hear a little bit of what's happening around you. In general, I think if you just don't like the in-ear experience, then the open earbuds are a great alternative. And the sound can still be really clear, really balanced. And it feels like, you're getting this kind of like open ear experience, but you still can enjoy all of the music or podcasts like Snake and Banter or Hot Take Point Made with them. And so now, of course, is a great time to get them because with the code SNAKEOPEN, you can go to raycon.com/snakeopen. You can get 15% off. So why not try them out? I think there is indeed there's a 30-day guarantee but they've got 3 million happy customers. Sound quality's good, so I don't know if you're gonna have to use that. But either way, check them out, raycon.com or buyraycon.com/snakeopen.
Plus, we're not self-serving or greedy on this show, so you can also use them to listen to Talking Counter. Like, basically, when you listen to that first 15 minutes, which has nothing to do with CS, it's just normal, like, what were you doing? I was at the gym the other day. You'll hear that in crystal clear quality. Listen, you'll be skipping through it. So, Falcons, okay, right, port, yeah, play, okay. But the point is, when you fast-forwarding through it, you'll be able to hear it really well. Sound awesome.
I have actually thanked Moses personally for adding timestamps because I was like, dude, I just don't need to hear about granite countertops for like 20 minutes for an indefinite amount of time that I don't know when this is going to end.
No, their problem for real is this. Do that whole opening thing, but then just cut that out of the VOD. Like, do that as a way to, warm yourself up, get the conversation. Listen, not everyone's like me. I can just turn up and go, sound check, yep, that's right. And then I just launch straight into it. But listen, not everyone's built like me. So it's all good, boys. I'm giving little tips here. Free tips for other podcasts also. So anyway, that's how great. Listen, we're just killing it. We can afford to share the wealth. So now we will go to the traditional firsts category, which is obviously the good category, isn't it? So STYKO, what's good right now in CS?
All right, I have a take that the Vitality are taking a break. And I think that's a good thing. And because they are. I
already see where this is going. Yeah, go on.
Okay, they are public about this break. Okay, they are posting pictures. I love how they're doing it. That they split up the team. They're not doing it together. They're part of the team is in New York. Part of the team is in like whatever Yosemite or whatever. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So why I'm saying this is because managing burnout and peaking at the right time was always like the key model that Apex was speaking about. And even though they were traveling to Blast Fort Worth event without any practice, they publicly opened up about that. Now they're going to go in IEM Atlanta without any practice. I do like that Vitality as an org are actually allowing them to do this and lose maybe a momentum. Because back in my days, when you are winning, you want to push harder. When you're losing, you want to push harder. Like, because you have to catch up to someone. Like the way that they're actually going about these kind of few weeks, I admire it. Obviously, they just won a Grand Slam, but I want to give props to actually Vitality for allowing them to do that. Does this mean they have nothing to work on? Hell no. It means they are okay with killing the momentum for the sake of a long-term ride, which, a lot of orgs would flat out disagree with. Like, just go ahead and bootcamp in LA or whatever and just practice there if you don't want to fly back to Europe. Like, that's all I'm going to say is that it is very rare what Vitality is doing, and even rarer, more rare, if that's a word, that they are kind of celebrating it, with not pushing themselves too much, I would say.
It's an interesting angle. I mean, I think that it's kind of, I don't know. I didn't know if I thought I was really good or bad that they were doing this. I guess I think that one thing that it says to two things. One thing that it says to me is this, that it shows that they also likely have a very high trust in their support staff, which they've talked about in the past, because while they're doing that, I know that Matt and Jack, their, I guess, assistant coach and their performance coach, were in San Antonio at a Spurs game. I mean, there was a picture of them almost courtside. But I would assume that Matt, and I don't know what Xtaz is doing. We haven't found out what his vacation plans have been. I assume that they're still probably keeping yeah.
No one knows what he's doing at any point in time, so it's on brand.
Yeah, that's true. All coaches, to be fair. Never really sure, but no, I think it kind of shows. It speaks to the ability that Vitality has to execute a variety of game plans at an extremely high level. If Matt just drops a paper at their table and says, "Okay, guys, this is probably what we're going to run as soon as we play FaZe in the opening match," or whatever it is at Atlanta. So I like that for them. Second thing I'm going to say is just, those are the best places to vacation in America. I'm just going to be honest. Like, you're going to either one, to California, Yosemite, or two, New York City. I don't really... Everybody else in America is coping that anything else is really worthwhile. So if I was recommending Europeans to do anything, it's those two things, or Hawaii. But Hawaii is a little out of the way.
Yeah. You know what? It's one thing that I want to mention as well is that because they're public about it, it kind of brings the spice up for their opener game in Atlanta, which is against BC game and Simple, right? Like, I mean, in theory, if Simple beats them in this opener game, right? Like, no one is really going to blame this break that they just took.
Yeah.
But it will add like even more emphasis if Simple and BC game is not able to turn up and do anything about it. Like Vitality are taking 2 weeks prior to 2 events, for 1 week each. They're just taking a break. They're admitting it. They're not practicing, not adding anything new. I think even Nardout here mentioned on Twitter that when he's looking through these demos, right, and he's finding clips for his new videos, Vitality did actually like 0 new things, that he just skipped those outright, and anything that happened was the fact what we already mentioned. They were just missing the smokes because of the update, right? So all I'm saying is I like this, and it adds a story that if they do well in Atlanta, it means like they're not even miles ahead. This is like light years ahead.
I'll even say as well, to add to the point you just said at the end there, the reason why that is telling is because, as people will have noticed, like at least the last 2 lands, if not more, they were pulling out like boosts no one had even seen. Remember, they did one against Na'Vi, they did that one that was like the fucking overpass boost as well. They had 2 boosts that they just pulled out of nowhere that, like, presumably they'd just come up with or just done in scrims. So if they've got nothing at all to add, it does imply that they are telling the truth. And just like Apex said before the Blast Rivals event, they didn't practice at all. Now, here's what's funny about that is you sort of nailed it, STYKO, by putting it in the framing of where your teams used to be. Almost no other team in history except this team, I don't know, maybe that Team Liquid team when they won all the events, and Astralis, only the teams that have had insane dominance can even actually start to think about this sort of planning. Because for everyone else, you have to win the next tournament because you probably didn't win the tournament before. Like in CS normally, when fans do that thing where they go, they're just saving strats for the mid, that's not a thing. If you have strats, you use them now. And not least by the way, because they don't age well. So you have to just use them now, and you hope when you get to the major, your strats are relevant and that they work and that you've tested them out and that they're not quite used up and that you've got enough new things. But that's why there's a lot of lock in when the major comes and when your team's ready to win it. If you are at the level Vitality's at, let's be real, I'm going to speculate. They're doing this because they're getting the most unique rerun of all time, which is they did this last year. Remember, they won 6 tournaments in a row and then the major. And then here's the detail people missed from my reflections with Apex. Apex, when I asked him about that Austin major for him and Mezzy, openly says, like, we actually probably would have lost that final if me and Mezzy didn't play that way. Because remember, that was the one where they lost the opener to Mongols and ZywOo was kind of playing a bit scuff on some of the maps. Like, essentially, I think that's why they're doing this, STYKO. I think what happened was last year, because they were winning every event, and I imagine they were trying really hard in between all of them, because, again, you never know when the magic is going to go away. You can win them all now. Why wouldn't you try and win the next tournament? I think what they realised was, fuck, we arrived at the major, and actually the major was where we were almost like no gas left in the tank, and it's like, actually, by the time we got to the final, like, we almost fucked it up, and if you'd have lost that, obviously you'd look back, and you'd be like, fuck, I'd easily trade 2 or 3 of those like medium trophies for the major. The major's the one that matters for history. So I think if you look at the reason I'm speculating this is because, one, these 2 events look like the most like intelligently picked out events to take a break from, because as you pointed out, one, they're part of a US trip anyway where you wouldn't go home because there's only like a week between them or something. So first of all, why not just do those as the 2? Then secondly, you did manage to win all the other events, so you're at the point where, I mean, the joke about this whole conversation is within this, we're not even doing it before they've done them. They've already won one of the events they didn't in practice for, so it's not even like they actually can't win the events. By the way, Atlanta's even such a weak field, they'll probably win that one too. But the other reason it's genius is, one, I believe them. I believe they're not practicing. And in fact, this is a detail actually about the old days, which is fans maybe don't know. Before you had player breaks, Dominant teams did used to do this. They just didn't say it in media. Like, I can tell you there have been times in history where people have used, like, a smaller tournament before a bigger tournament, basically as, like, official scrims, as it were. Like, you didn't have time to go home. You didn't have time for a boot camp. So what you do is you go there, and sometimes that's even why a dominant team would lose, because they might do something, like, actually, funny enough, like, Vitality did himself a couple of times ago. You might even, like, fuck with your veto a bit, or try a map you don't ever pick just to see if it works, you know, because you think to yourself, it's not that I'm trying to lose the tournament, but I'm just willing to not do everything 10 out of 10 to test them out, to experiment, to give myself a break. And so, first of all, I think they've picked the perfect one, because especially because, as said, they might even just win both the tournaments anyway, which also, by the way, in a future documentary, that's a pretty cool scene where you took a break for 2 events, still won them anyway. Like, that's fucking ridiculous, isn't it? Like, that's going to make you seem even more goated. But then also, as you alluded to there, STYKO, the other part that I think is really intelligent about this is, mate, actually, if you do lose, or you just don't do your best performance, let's say you just lose in the final, or you lose to Navi in the final at Atlanta, it becomes more forgivable because you've already messaged in advance and you're clearly not lying, that you actually aren't actually doing this whole tournament super hardcore. And also, here's what's kind of mad, even though this is unintentional, it's like they're trying to actually stop themselves being called out for lying, where, as you say, it's like, right, they're on some Overwatch shit, like, team disassemble around the world, like, and then take pictures, like, what, with, like, a newspaper, like, here's today's paper, ZywOo's on the other side of the country from, I know they've even, by the way, no one did this, Sadie, this is how you know everyone loves that team. I actually low-key am shocked that all the fans didn't do that lunatic shit where you, like, try and examine which groups went with each other. They're like, oh, wait a minute, but Messi's with Apex, but then does that mean ZywOo doesn't fuck with it? Like,
I did read that. I did read that.
Yeah, they did do that. Okay, right. I was thinking,
I read one fan actually said, "Oh, it's really good that the 2 French guys aren't just together in their own clique, and the other it's the other guys that are together, and so it shows that they're all friends or something." Someone did like that. I was like, interesting point.
I do have an insight on this. I'm not sure if I can share. I hope Apex will forgive me, but I overheard this conversation. It's that they wanted, after IEM Rio, to do this break. And they promised to each other that if we win, me and Messi, we will go to New York between, like, Rio and Fort Worth event. And for every day, because they love Michelin stars, restaurants, etc., and then them too, for every day, they would go to a different restaurant every time. So right now, I think that's what they're doing. You know, they're in New York, I think, them two together. So I hope I could have shared that, because Apex, I just overheard.
I've heard that. Some fans have been writing about the fact they're going to Michelin stars. I don't know where they heard that. So I guess maybe it was some French podcast or something. I don't know. I never heard that in an official interview, but you're saying stuff that I've read fans write as well.
Okay.
A lot of good restaurants in New York.
They bugged out the airport shuttles, because that's when I heard it.
Oh, okay.
And wait a minute,
I don't know how fans knew that. I really have no idea.
It was the 3 players that went to Yosemite Park or whatever, right? There was like ZywOo, Flames, and who the fuck he was the other one? Rops. There you go. They were the ones who went there. Okay. I'll do a shit Thorin joke where I'll crowbar it in. Obviously, that's because ZywOo's hero is Yosemite Sam, the cartoon character. You know why? He's also got 2 guns. It's a joke about the dual Berettas there. He's really good with dual Berettas.
Best dually player of all time.
Listen,
best dually player of all time.
those are 6
can't even argue it.
It's all good. Yeah, but he is actually dope with them. It's insane, isn't it? And that's one of those few areas, I said this on the core stream, one of the only areas I ever actually appreciated James Bardolph's commentary was that stupid line he once made where someone, I think it was like Get Right, someone did an insane Julie clip, and then Bardolph was something like, he's got an extra gun, Dan! He's got a second gun! That was pretty funny. I'll give you that one. It's stupid, but that was a pretty good call. That's Banter.
I think one button, Dan. He's got one button, Dan. It's up there too.
It's not bad. Yeah. Right, okay. If we now go on, Maui, what is your good point?
My good point is probably a pretty short one. It's just that I actually think it's a good thing that the Kazakh fandom is as crazy and as it is. I know that it's gotten out of hand to a point. Like
what's it imply? People get like stampeded and like, oh, please. You're like, that's good. I like that. That's okay. What a bad take.
I think it's great that Counter-Strike has rabid fandoms. No, I'm glad. As far as I've heard, it never got actually violent. I've never heard it actually got. It did seem like they almost toppled over Kyosuke at one point, but I think it's just sick. I think it's actually just sick that they've reached this rock star status, and that Kazakh. I also think this. I think it's great for that PGL recognized that there was a Kazakhstan fandom that had this magnitude, and that they actually chose to have events here. Like I never would have thought that an event in Astana would have had this amount of fandom, and so that was a shrewd move from PGL to go somewhere that I never even thought Tier 1 CS would go to, and for it to be as well received as it has been for now 2 consecutive years. We haven't even gotten to the arena, but what's happening outside the hotel is just like it's like we're at a major. You know, it's like a major.
If it stays outside of the hotel, I'm a fan of it. But it happened multiple times in my career where things got violent inside of the hotel. It was, I remember the Paris Major, where people just found out where players are living, and that's natural because like everyone is posting vlogs and pictures, etc. And people are just getting inside of the hotel and they're running in the lobby. Like you can't even get to the elevators, and they're taking pictures. And yeah, like you can cater to like 5 to 10 people every day when you're like a player or whatever, but it gets to the point where it's just exhausting, and everyone you sign one guy and then you have a line of 50 others. And then in Budapest Major as well, it happened where people were getting inside of the lobby, and it's just too uncomfortable, and people had to start using like a back entrances and exits from the hotel to like disappear. It is kind of meh, but what I saw on social media is that when, you know, Dustin was given the task to calm down the people in front of the hotel, and he actually said that, guys, please be respectful. When you meet players, don't just run to them, be calm, stay, like, be nice to them. And someone on Twitter said, like, why are not PGL tournament organizer doing that? I'm like, holy hell, you really want some nobody, quote unquote, to talk to like hundreds of people in front of the hotel and tell them, please behave? Like, of course, if it's Dustin doing it in his, I don't know, probably hometown of Astana, I really get the message that they are starting to feel like, okay, this is real. We have an event in our country, in our city. It's after a long, long time. It's not going to happen that much. There are stars here. Let's behave, because it is kind of ridiculous, the clip that I saw of Kyosuke. It got to the point where I was looking at the clip and I didn't even see Kyosuke. Like, he was under the pile of bodies. Like, it looked almost like, this is not great. This is not great. I like that you put it as a good point, but you found a like narrative which I agree with. So I'm okay with that. Yeah,
here's the problem. Go on.
Oh, just to slightly set the record straight, just for Bud actually in here. He's from Kizlorda. It's another city in Kazakhstan. It's I've never heard of it before, but he said it in an interview. That's all.
Shout out to
if people wanted to know.
They don't, but anyway.
How I know.
Right. The problem I have with this is like one of the worst self-serving points Maui's ever made. Because look, in the most abstract sense ever, yeah, I can agree. It's really good that like a fan base is activated, and that's the local fan base, and that it might mean, for example, they fill out the arena, and then they're really passionate in the arena, and we have an awesome event. I mean, an obvious good example of that would be contrast it with what happened at Blast. Like, by the way, I can even tell you as someone who went to the arena in the Blast one, the real problem they had there was just it was a giant 360 arena. So if you actually had have cynically put everyone in one section, it would have looked pretty decent, actually. The problem was people were too spaced out and you could only see from like one section at one time. So it made it look really empty, though, which I do agree. Listen, that does actually bum me out a bit when you watch the event and you don't get the same like level of sound from the crowd mics, etc. So look, in theory, yes, the idea the fans are super passionate is good. But I'll give you an example. Here's where Maui has gone too deep on the TO side of Corp here. Because I'm pretty sure it might even have been my old pal Carmack who said this about ESL, because it was some other self-serving cocksucker, where basically what they did was they once tried to argue for real that it's good that fans constantly X-ray cheat on the screen at events, because their logic, right? Listen, if you follow their logic, it made some level of sense. It's just if you came out and considered the reality of it, it was absurd. So their argument was this, right? Isn't it crazy that we've gotten to the point in esports where the fan, doesn't just sit silently, observe the game and go, oh, good job, or whatever. He's so emotionally invested, he wants to almost shout out, like, he's behind you, like, go there, like, they're so into it. Like, that, again, that almost makes sense until you realise they are just cheating. Like, they're actually people trying to cheat, ruin the game, and just make that. Suddenly, then it's not actually as cool. So, yeah, I don't really agree with Maui in this sense, which is, the stuff outside the hotel look like exactly what I don't want to see. Like, stupid Kiyasuka's going like, skipping out there like fucking Heidi in the Swiss Alps or something, and then he's going, oh, what the fuck? Like, it's like he's just getting trampled, like fucking Zerglins are just taking over him or something.
I'm going to go out here and say this.
What is this?
I'm going to go out here and say this, and to be one to victim blame I think Kyosuke likes it. I think Kyosuke likes these things. He goes out on purpose.
He likes the attention.
He engages in the fandom so obviously in these things. That's my take.
And to be fair, look how he was dressed. Wearing a Falcons jersey. It said Kyosuke. He wanted it.
Asking for it.
Anyway, that's the point. Is that's the only circumstance in which you can say that. Yeah. That joke became safe in that scenario. You thought I casaded it. I didn't. I casaded it. Anyway, exactly. Now we will go on because there's actually an interesting market that has just opened here, boys, in light of what's happened early days at PGL Astana. So if we go here on Polymarket, they've got one here, which I thought was perfect timing. Will PARIVISION make a change before July? Remember, July would actually be after the major. Now, if you've seen recently, a lot of people maybe haven't followed the story. Generally, yes, PARIVISION still has had some excellent results this year. But if you notice, first of all, it feels like every other land, they kind of bomb. And crucially, we've made this point many times on this show. It might even have been Maui who made it first, I can't remember. But one of the things we nailed about PARIVISION and James specifically a while ago is the reason you know James is actually an insane caller is because his calls work the best against the best teams, which implies that when there's a logic to how the other team plays and you can study it, then you can make an amazing call in response. But if you've ever seen when they play, in theory, randoms, sure, fair play to Nancy, they're now beating Falcons as well. But when you play these teams that are in theory are nobodies, PARIVISION's lost quite a lot of times to those like random ass teams. Like that ESL Pro League was a nightmare, mate. They've had a few events where they're basically a last place team. They can either seemingly make like top 4 or last place. Like the swing is crazy. So, in light of the fact, one, Dastan himself already flamed the lineup a few times. Two, as you can see from the roster, they know they aren't superstar players, mate. They've been very clear about this. The question is, does PARIVISION make a change? At the moment, the market's on exactly 50%. The traders say maybe they do, maybe they don't. So I'm asking you, STYKO, do you think before July they do make a roster move? Do you think it happens?
I definitely think it's more than 50% likely that they will make the roster change. Even when they're winning tournaments, Dastan just goes out and says like nasty shit about the teammates, and like, I wish I could kick them, but we can't because we're locked in for the major right now. After the major, definitely something should occur unless they go like a top 4 at the major or something like that. And, Dastan is that type of guy that is very honest in the interviews. He always speaks out, and even in the vlogs, he's very blunt with the teammates, right? And every time, it's kind of like the specific trio of those inexperienced guys, Xilo, Nota, and Belchonok. Yes. And it does make sense that they would probably look for certain upgrades. They are a prospect, and they know what you just said with James, like playing against tier 1 teams is where he thrives. And that's why they will have a lot of talent to pick, even proven talent, even unproven talent, doesn't really matter. But there will be some interesting names and prospects coming up in PARIVISION conversation, in my opinion. Whether it will be for Belchonok or Nota, I think those two guys are
it's got to be one of those two, yes.
Yeah, but I do not won't happen that both of them will go.
Right.
That's too much of a overhaul, which I will not agree with. However, yes, to me, this is crazy that it's 50%. All I'm going to say.
I would go above 50% also. This is one where I feel like maybe the only thing that the market would hold out for in this case would just be the time frame. Like, is it going to take a little bit longer than this? Because obviously that's pretty much right after. But I would imagine a team like PARIVISION would just get down to business immediately. I don't think they really would wait. And I feel like there's a lot. The great thing about being PARIVISION here is that there's so many players you can pick from. Like I think of the VP bench players also that they would just love to have. If I'm reuniting with Flit, like in a heartbeat. If I'm James, I'm getting Flit back on my team for either ZywOo or Nota. Personally, I think that Nota is the weaker player. I know he won the EVP at Bounty, but that was basically just for one really good grand final versus Falcons. I'd say ZywOo is marginally better in more situations. I just like the look of his game a little bit more. It's not as all in, where I feel like Nota is just kind of like swinging for the fences every single round. But yeah, that's my take. I think that A little bit above 50.
Yeah, basically, I'll echo what Maui said. That's what I was going to say. The other reason I also think this happens, here's what's funny. I think the one area fans got ahead of themselves. They always do this, sadly, with teams which in the server are elite but aren't actually elite organisations, is be real. Keisuke, someone's never joining this team, boys. They haven't got the money and he wouldn't join. Like, to him, even though right now PARIVISION might be better, it doesn't matter. Like, that's not a giant org that can pay him a giant salary. They don't have massive buyout money. But the key thing is, if you go to the level, actually, that PARIVISION could get almost everyone to say yes, there are so many Russian players. It's crazy. At this tournament, there's the K27 guys. That Fame is on that team. There's fucking the Bet Boom guys. There's a bunch of the Imaginos guy could come. There's a bunch of players could come from that squad. If anyone watches Tier 2 online CS, it is filled with Russian players. Like, the joke is that's where Jim got these players, except for ZywOo. Like, he just found them online, playing, grinding out games. So I think it's actually almost certain they make a roster move, especially because, to echo what STYKO said, if you look at those two players, Nota and Belchanok, mate, Nota is still living off that fucking final of Blast earlier this year. He has never been close to that good ever again. That was his life game, but it'll mean that some fans probably don't hate on him. I've seen him had a lot of bad games since then. And the Belchanok guy, listen, he has some decent aim, but I think he's just a bit brain dead. I'll just say it outright. Like, he just doesn't look experienced at this level. I think that's one of the problems with being put into a million playoffs over and over and over again when you're like in the first year of your career. Like, you're not going to look good unless you're some guy who just has a really fast adaptation period. So to me, you just go out and I agree with STYKO. I wouldn't do both. I would do this one at a time. I would figure out which one you think is the biggest hindrance to the team or which player could add the most and just do one roster move. And by the way, if you do one roster move, it's the right one. That's why I'm even with Maui. If you did one with an experienced player, we could even get pretty hyped that you can actually like win tournaments. Like, at that point, maybe you'd even take the next step.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think really quickly, I don't see why, if you're James, you don't just reunite with three guys that you won the major with that seem fairly available, like being Norbert for Belchanok, Fame for Cielo, I guess, and then Flit for Noda, something like that. Like, if I just had one more experienced player on this team, I feel like I could believe in them to just have a much higher floor than they do today. Because now they can they just sadly can kind of lose to everybody because one of those three guys is just going to mess up a plan for James.
And also, yes, as if people don't know, Norbert currently plays for that Hortu team that gets it to the odd tournament too. So yeah, in theory, I'm pretty much sure they'd all say yes. Like, they're all not even in giant orgs. Like, I feel like it's the obvious move to go to. Okay, before I go to my point, I will quickly let people know, are you a boomer who wants to read a newsletter? Like, do you want to feel like you're part of a small village where you go, oh, Mrs. Simpson's banana bread is going to be available at the church fete on Saturday? Because Monte Cristo thinks you do. So he's released something called the LFN Herald. Go to like herald.lastfreenation.shop or .com or something. And if you go there, you can sign up on this email list. And basically every week on Thursday, they'll send you an email which summarizes, big things in esports. Obviously, it links to some of our shows that address them all. So it's just like a cool way if you want to keep up to date on general esports, things that you can do it. Okay, my good point is this. It's actually going to tie to the Vitality story. Boys, I want to just reframe the final of this Blast Rivals event that happened in Fort Worth. Let's just remember, as we discuss it, what was just discussed about 8 minutes ago. Vitality didn't practice for that event. Right? They didn't practice for an event. By the way, think about this for a second. If you're going to play Blade in a best-of-5 final, mate, I'll guarantee he got like 3 hours sleep the night before that. I'll bet he was balls deep in those demos, mate, going hard as a motherfucker. And that's, by the way, already the team, I assume he's already been studying for months and months now since he knows he has to beat you to win the event. So you're actually making it so that, like, on paper, if you ever were going to lose, that should be the one. But, bro, the first two maps of that final, here's what I have to give the props to. I saw a lot of people flaming Na'Vi. Mate, it's the mental of fucking Vitality is unbelievable. Remember, if this is the event where you've had no practice before, it's okay to lose a really close map in the final. Apparently it isn't for them, boys. They could be down 0-11 on Nuke and still win the fucking game. Like, remember that stat that was shown on stream, that B-Tram stat, that said when a team goes down 0-9 in CS2, only one time out of 72 matches has anyone ever actually lost the game, and it was Aurora randomly. Like, every other time in history, people lose. Vitality, while not practicing, just broke that. They were the other team out of 73 times that actually won that one. And then also, if people will think about the Nuke one, it's the same thing on Anubis. If you watch that Anubis game, bro, if you are anyone except Vitality, you are going to lose that map. The flaw of that map was Na'Vi was just a better team on Anubis. Na'Vi had a way better CT side. Na'Vi even made some great T side call. The problem was, at late round, players just decided the rounds for Vitality. Players would just do a 3K or win a 2VX, or Rops would just win a billion 1v1, right? I just want to make my point here. My good point is, with so many many things to praise about Vitality, so many things about the stars and the fragging. No, but one thing I think is really crazy. It's another thing I think they're a contender for best ever in CS history. It's just the mentality of the players. Like, I don't know how they do it, how they keep locked in. People make all these comments about, like, Apex is almost flaming them when they haven't even lost. It's like, yeah, but that's part of why they don't lose. Like, somehow this guy can, like, bring people back to the moment or, like, set the stakes correctly. And the joke is, if you ever watch that match, because I've just seen it happen too many times, the whole time that Na'Vi was on the second side, the T side of Nuke, on my core stream, I'm just saying to the guy on the stream, look, when the other team has 11 rounds, I should just say, like, this is basically still going to be a win for Na'Vi. But I said to him, as soon as we get to, they have like 5-6 rounds, and then they get to 8 rounds, we're going to start calling it that actually Vitality wins this, mate, because I've just seen it too many times now. Like, this is the only team ever. They're on some, like, Superman in the comic book shit where, like, it doesn't matter what happens to Superman now. You know, at the end he wins. You know, somehow he never gives up and he just wins, doesn't he? Like, I think that's, when you consider it's easy to get lost in the clutches or the big fragging or the fact that they're just winning all the or the Apex trash talk. Let's not forget, like, their mentality is unbelievable, boys. I've never seen anything like this. It's like they just have like an unbeatable aura, but they built that. It's real. Like, I think I put it this way, I think they believe they're unbeatable too, if you know what I mean. STYKO, what do you think of this?
Yeah, what you said about the Blade and then him preparing and being balls deep in the demos, I 100% agree with that, because it happened on multiple occasions now. It happened in Blast Open Rotterdam in the best of 5 final, where I do feel like Na'Vi were reading the game of Vitality well. They lost 0-3, yes, but it was the delivery of it. That was like, they failed to deliver on the plan, whether it was like individualistic mistakes from the players. But what Blade is doing is, I think he's preparing them well. But the execution part, when it's up to the players and up to the IGL to, you know, kind of like put the motion in plan, put the plan in motion, you do struggle. And it happened once again. It happened in Rotterdam, and then it happened IEM Rio. It was obviously just the best of 3 that they lost to them. And then it happened now at the Fort Worth. So the way they're losing, it's actually remarkable for Na'Vi to put up that kind of a resistance, because sometimes I'm watching these games, and this is my brain. This is a bad habit of mine, but sometimes I watch and I'm like, oh, this game is done. Like, it's still like 11-8, but I'm thinking like it's done because of the stupid round they just lost. But when Vitality is playing, I sometimes think of myself like, yeah, it's done, but it's Vitality, you know, like, and I'm pretty good at that, contemplating like, this game is probably over. It's statistically way less likely to come back at this point, and because I've seen billions of these matches, but with Vitality something clicks differently, and it's. I can't really put a finger on that. It's either individualistic plays that you mentioned, that they kind of bail them out, and Robs with the 1v1 clutches. It's the little double kills. It's the extra chip damage that they do with grenades. It's the perfect call at the perfect time. And even if they don't do the perfect call at the perfect time, they have a faster reaction. It's like everyone is playing with a handicap when they're playing against Vitality. And that's what's scary about that. Scary in a good way. I love watching Vitality because this is as close to the flawless Counter-Strike as we can get. And, you know, I'm just perfectionist like that. But it is scary to play against them with the way they always close out these close matches. I really have not seen anything like that in Counter-Strike ever in 10 years of me playing it competitively.
I still haven't formally made my decision about whether I think Vitality has overtaken Astralis as my GOAT team. I know a lot of people have already made that claim, but I don't even think and what's weird is that I don't think the Rivals event should have been where my take changed. But watching that grand final, I kind of wanted to say after it that it was there. I just feel like I need to really formally lay out all of my criteria for it, and I haven't set aside the time to do that for what constitutes the greatest team of all time for me. But yeah, no, the way that they do it is just it makes me want to vault Apex above Glaive really, really soon, because so much of it comes down to his how laser focused he is to win every single round, every single map. I love that the fire that it's kind of great actually in contrast to ZywOo, because I think that the complaint that I and many people sort of had with ZywOo at the beginning was kind of the lack of fire, how it seems like it almost was too nonchalant for everything he did. Yes. But the opposite is just I think the yin and yang here is Apex and ZywOo. I think they're just the perfect pairing ever, because what ZywOo seems to lack in fire, Apex brings all of it in spades. It's kind of like a more I almost want to say mature and teamwork-oriented version of what karrigan did for Heroic, where he was the lightning rod. Apex is that, but he does it in a way where he still plays in like a really good flow of the team, and he doesn't like Apex never tries to take over. Like that's what I love. He does it in the server. He's not overextending too much. I mean, sure, he dies. Like he has a high deaths per round or whatever. So yeah, you could say that, but he's not taking a million resources a la karrigan's op, for example, that then kind of nerfs the team in a different way. He's playing within a system, wall firing everybody up, making sure they're staying on point, on the ball for every consecutive round. And I think that this team completely needed that. I think it factors in a lot to STYKO's point where they kind of need this sort of break, because I think some of these guys, maybe the fire doesn't burn as hot as it does for Apex. And I think that in a weird, fun way, I think actually, as magnificent as ZywOo is as a player, I don't think he has the career that he has if not for somebody like Apex being right next to him, who's trying to get him to be the world #1 with a bullet, and trying to capture every single title possible and extend the lead that he has above Simple for like greatest Counter-Strike player. I mean, I think that all of it factors in so well, and it's a story that like at this point is I don't even know if I want to see it end. I think Counter-Strike is actually in such a great place because of how good Vitality is and how much they're pushing everybody to try to catch up.
Okay, STYKO, what is your bad point?
All right, so this is to open up a discussion, okay? Because I'm not sure if I'm right on this, but I think the experience for fans to go watch CS in an arena right now is not good enough and can be significantly improved. And this is coming from me, as I have not really been as a fan, but I've noticed, community, and I've now done a couple of broadcast events in these arenas, because this is meant to open up a discussion also in the comments down below, because this is kind of like a letterbox. The story for me is somewhat relevant with recent news that we are moving away from 6 teams playoff, meaning that we will have Fridays packed with 4 quarterfinal games, which is good for audience, but let's be honest, who is going to watch 4 games of non-stop CS in a loud arena? But in a way, they're going to be still charged for it, right? So the whole arena experience need to be, in my opinion, somewhat adjusted. And I have some ideas, let's say. My idea comes, this is a little backstory, but my idea comes from being in NA and visiting a couple NHL games. Now, I'm not a huge diehard hockey fan, but I went there for the sports until I realized very few people came there for the sports. So I attended 3 NHL games in my life, and all the time home team lost really badly.
Okay.
And everyone was still cheering, still having fun. They were dancing, they were chanting. It felt like a social gathering with a hockey in the background, right? And I understand that there's a lot of downtime in hockey and way more than in CS, but I feel like there are still interesting way to go around it. For example, Blast event, they had Refrag as a sponsor, right? Am I correct, right? And I was thinking about it that you have a PC setup with a random fan from the arena, and you have like a Refrag scenario, and a random fan is on the standby whole game to jump in and do some kind of a challenge, like an aimbot or a pre-fire challenge, under a minute. And this goes on when there is a tech boss, right? Or during halftime. Like you still have a whole arena suddenly taken out of that game, and you have a mini game of a random guy completely butchering like aimbots challenge, and they're cheering for them, or they're completely like booing him because he's doing terribly, right? So this is basically another layer of a game, and plus the refrag gets like a huge shoutout. So it is what co-streamers do when there is downtime and they play this GeoGuessr, right? But let's do it in arena. We stick to CS and actually use the sponsor we get, and it's like kind of a win-win situation, in my opinion. Sometimes you have to buy tickets. This is another thing. Sometimes you have to buy tickets for these events months in advance, and price is separate topic. I don't want to get into that right now. I don't know. I don't see it through financials and economics if it's worth it or not. But when you make this purchase, you don't even know what teams are going to be there. You don't know who is going to qualify, let alone who will make it into the actual playoffs. So if you plan the trip to go somewhere, seeing your favorite team, which let's say it's like Mongols or whatever, you essentially risk that they will be just grouped, and on the plane home, when you're just on the plane going there, right? So it kind of, you have to incentivize people getting into these social gatherings in arenas. And I wonder if you have any ideas how to do it, because one take that I see other people make is that whenever you're playing Counter-Strike, the whole arena is kind of like dark. You can't like put the audience on the spot and do like a look-alike cams, which is quite popular in NHL games, or like even
kiss cams
or
on,
whatever it might. Yeah. Like, let's have some fun while doing there without the Counter-Strike providing that only fun. Okay. You know what I'm saying?
It's a really cool point, because I feel like one of the best atmospheric elements to live show that I've been part of lately has been actually when Starladder brought out those drummers to ramp up into some of those rounds. The two guys that they hired just kind of made it sort of like a mini concert every time there was any team coming to play. Whereas we've seen, I think Blast does this thing where actually they don't show this on the live broadcast, but one of the reasons they hire Darth Mike is that he does halftime entertainment. He does between map entertainment sometimes that's like takes the form of kind of more what you would see at typical sports arenas and things. It's difficult because Counter-Strike takes place in a lot of venues that aren't really as, I mean, I think it would have been nice by now, for example, if at say like ESL tried to esteem the Lanxess and the Spodek as much as they did, but I don't think there was really any sort of history that appeared in these kinds of places. Whereas when you go to, I think like the United Center in Chicago, you see the banners that the Bulls got per their championships that they won in the Jordan era, and it adds to the atmosphere. But like, I don't really think that existed in the same way with other than stuff they're just kind of doing on stage. You don't really have this feeling. And like when you go to baseball stadiums, for example, in America, when you walk around, they have almost like little mini museums of things that they've that they've achieved, or like old player photos and stuff like that. And you can walk through like a hall of team photos throughout all the years, and you can it's just fun to be there because the whole atmosphere is surrounding that. Whereas I don't know if I don't really know what else they could do, because it's mostly like sponsor booths that are everywhere, and I don't know how the lengths that they can go to in terms of like transforming the arena, which is just rented for a 3-day period, and making it into like a full-fledged Counter-Strike experience. You would hope that somebody like ESL, who has these multi-year deals with arenas, would have probably done something like that by now, but I just haven't seen it. So it's kind of a cool topic to bring up.
I've got a few angles for you here. So first of all, another self-serving point, but I just also think it would bang, is if I were them and I have a massive thing, like you say, like 4 best of 3s in a day, and I'm sat there just watching CS after CS, I tell you what I would do in the downtime between matches when you're setting up, I would unironically, if you have the talent at the event, do things like host a live podcast. Host a thing where like the fan can be involved, they can share, they can make a noise in a certain way. By the way, that also content creators, if you have the time, would love to do something like this. I think that's another way to entertain people when it's not on the stream itself necessarily. It doesn't have to be on the ESL stream. It can just be a separate thing that's filmed live, and then the matches do whatever the matches do. Also, similarly, in general, the idea you're enhancing the experience. I can tell you, when we did E-League in Atlanta on American television, what they did was, because the show time for the TV one would be at like, I think it was like 10 p.m. local time or something, they would have it where for an hour before you could go, and I think they called it like, like a tailgate or something, where they would just have a section out the back of the arena where they would have like a hot dog truck and a bunch of, whack-a-mole and silly, like, almost like the games you get in an arcade or a fair or something like that. I even think if I was doing a mass event, especially a major, I would do that, bro. I would have it where when you're not inside the arena, because obviously you do 4 best of 3s, you're going to want to stretch your legs and walk around a bit. I would do it so there's a whole outside area where, again, by the way, sponsors can activate, you can do silly fun games, you shoot basketballs, I don't know, shoot an airsoft gun to try and get a certain number of things, you win a sticker of Nico. So just things that, again, if I was a dad taking my kids who asked me to take them to the CS event, this is the sort of stuff that, one, I might enjoy as a break, and then two, is going to make it even more fun for them. And then lastly, one thing I'll just throw out there is, I think that even though they do them a bit at events need to ramp up way more, in my opinion, of those player fan signing sessions. Like, I can tell you, there's loads of talent, wish we could get in on those. Like, the amount of times a player, like, you're walking do an event and someone goes, hey, can I get a thing? You're like, I literally have to go to the stage right now. Or someone messages you, hey, where can I meet you at the event to take a photo? It's like, bro, there's just no time for that. Like, I can't be meeting one person from a tweet to, I've got to live my life. So that's where, like, I actually wish every day there were things like that you could potentially be a part of. And that, again, if you're a fan, it means no matter how good or bad the game is, you get the experience of being the fan of the game. You get to meet a famous player, you get to play some fun games. Lastly, I'll just throw this out there. This is a slightly off-topic one, but it's sort of what STYKO's asking for, I'm pretty sure, which is I also would literally try and coordinate directly with fan groups of teams. Like at the moment, teams themselves do this in places like Brazil, I know, but I can tell you one of the secrets of Korean esports, which is why Korean esports has always seemed so advanced. It isn't. It's because they understand how TV works. So what they will do when they have like a League of Legends match in their arena, like a weekly game, is there's certain areas they just give those tickets to the fan club. Look, they pay for them, but like they make sure that like all the fans of T1 with Faker sit in one area, then all the fans of KT Rolston, their rival team, sit in another area, and as a result, you get the atmosphere which everyone's jealous of in sports of British football matches where, you know, people do like seemingly impromptu, but they're planned, I can tell you, like songs that are brand new that they just invented about that player or something funny that happened to the team last week or something about their opponents. Like, if you want to make cool atmosphere like that, that's how you do it. You don't just have people just sat randomly around in the arena, so there's a FaZe guy next to a Team Liquid fan next to a Na'Vi. No, you have them all in one area and you have like a whole thing that's coordinated. That way, if someone brings an instrument, that's what leads the beat of the drum, etc. That's how it works at football, if people don't know. So I would just do stuff like that, because I know what you mean. At the moment, for me, just the matches alone aren't that insane an experience. You want to do other things that make it feel super epic. So it's like I went to the major. Because I always tell people, I'll tell you the last thing I'll say is this. When I go to events like I just went to now, people go, or for example, they had an event in Rotterdam, I live in the Netherlands. People are like, are you going to go? It's like, why would I? One, the view's better at home. I can watch all the fucking views on my screen. And two, I don't just want to sit on my own in an arena, but surrounded by a bunch of people I don't know. Like, that isn't a great time for me. So if you had some of these things, it would make it cooler. Right, the other thing is, boys, we've got to be conscious how much time we've got, so make your point quickly.
I would just say super quickly, I mean, then that I think so Rio did the fan fest, but the problem was that more people were going to the fan fest than sitting in the arena. So then that you just have to make sure that the draw, because sometimes fans also just, they like, I think when you were bringing up the co-streamers, it'd be kind of cool to have them in the concourse and then people could kind of stand behind them and wave their hands and make silly faces or whatever. I just think that there is a legitimate possibility that more people would be out in the concourse watching that live podcast, hanging around the player signings and sitting in their seats. And like, I think everybody knows now that so much of esports and TOs is optics of what's going on in the stands. And if they find any reason to not provide entertainment, like not in the arena, but in the concourse or outside in like a tailgate environment, then that almost in a way hurts their bottom line. So it's just something else to worry about.
Right, Maui, what is your bad point?
Okay, my bad point is G2 for a couple of reasons. I mean, they've had nerds now for think about 2 months roughly, and I just think that this team, which felt pretty loaded with potential, is kind of just it's not really reading to me like it's improved all that much. I feel like it's been 2 months that they've had nerds. They played 3 smaller tier lands and then now 2 S tier lands, and then they're now playing their 3rd one right now. I don't think this is kind of a non-starter for me. I don't think that this team is really going to be as competitive nearly as we thought they would be, or as I thought they would be. I thought that maybe they'd be breaking into like the top 6 or so, but it just doesn't feel like that. Like at Rivals, for example, they lost to FaZe in a brand new FaZe, by the way, in the quarterfinals, and it admittedly it was Brokey Friday, but it's not. I mean, they should be beating them any day of the week. I also mean watching them today. I mean, they lost to MOUZ today. Brand new team, by the way, like just formed. And even here's a fun stat. So I did like a deep dive on G2 actually myself, and I found out. So on average, a lot of on anti-ecos, a lot of teams that are elite, like Na'Vi, Vitality, even like Astralis, all of these teams have about like a 2.5 opening kill death ratio when they're the gun round team versus ecos, G2's is like a 1.5. Like they're barely going above positive on like opening kills versus ecos, which is such a crazy stat to even find when I was like digging into them a little bit more. So that's a very weird problem. I've never really seen a team that is so bad where their entry riflers or oppers are just not shooting people with pistols. It's just a very, very strange. I'm sure there's like some systematic reason, but I also think that if I go into their CT sides, I think Mattis in anchor positions is just bad. I think he was really, I mean, he got totally abused today by MOUZ on the B side of Mirage, and it's something to learn. Like in a way, you would think that he has the skill set to be a Yimpat, but that's just not what he's done. Like that's not what he's like been playing short on Mirage for a pretty long time. I think on Fnatic he was playing short on Mirage. I know he's played a lot of rotator positions throughout his career in general, so it's kind of weird to see him in that sort of spot now. And that's why I brought it up as a little teaser in your ugly point, Thorin, earlier, because I think the CT stuff is really weird now because you have 3 guys that want to play rotator spots in Nerds, Hunter, and Mattis. But so that part sucks to me. And then also I think their T sides have just not progressed. I think that Hunter still calls this like really rudimentary style on offense, which I thought he would have grown out of. I thought so watching them early on with this lineup, I even asked Saw in an interview question, I was like, well, you guys run a lot of really pretty obviously like 2-stage plays where it's like do an initial like set nades to take some map control, and then you just go into a split. Like, are you going to expand upon that? And he said, I think this was at London too, so this is like 8 months ago. He said that, he's got to build this foundation first, build these kind of poppy, pacey plays, and then they can work on doing stuff that's a little slower, more mid-rounding. And I just haven't really seen that. I don't think that's how they ever their T sides in general, with like slow, methodical map control that involves mid-rounding after like prodding a little bit. Not every team plays like that, but I think to actually really be elite, you do need to play like that a little bit more. I think you need to be able to feel out the map, just to make good mid rounds. And I don't think that Hunter has proven to me that he's really been progressing in terms of his mid round capabilities. Maybe some people see it and they can people could chime in if they're on this podcast or anywhere in the comments. But I haven't really caught that in the games that I've watched of G2. And so yeah, CT side I see role issues. T side I don't see progress on their growth of calling, and in general, just results haven't really been what I expected a team with these caliber of players should be.
What you said about that stat is actually what I want to bring up, because I do agree that their roles are kind of messed up, and I will take that Hunter is however Hunter is playing is kind of questionable to me, because he likes to go away from the team into these lurky mid-round positions, which is very rare for an actual IGL to go about that way. Okay, so what I'm trying to bring with the pistol round, the opening point, is that oftentimes you will just see IGL ramping up like a lot of eco kills because they have a Mac 10 and they will take a lot of space, right? But Hunter is not really putting himself in that position. That's what Mattis is there for, and Nerds, and even Nerds he doesn't hate a good lurk. It's like another, and Heavy God has to lurk as well because of the like roles on some maps, because by nature he's just a lurker. So I feel like we have a lot of pieces disconnected from the core pack of the team. Sampaios has to be all of a sudden like this supportive OPER in that sense, because Hunter is not providing that as an IGL, which is usual that IGL will serve as a supportive piece, throwing a lot of utility. But now so you see the dynamics is like kind of crumbling underneath. What you said about the CT side though, I do agree that, bro, just put Mattis in a not playmaking positions, but active roles. Him being in a passive roles where he is not required or not in a position to make plays, you will kill his potential on that map. And I didn't see the game today against MOUZ, so if you're saying that he got abused, I completely get it. Because if the guy is playing B-side Mirage, well, it's not that great. Heavy God, one of the best and least resourceful anchors in the game. I do understand that on Mirage you need 2 of those, and he's going to play that A-side. But, I don't want to see Mattis being a double body with Heavy God anchoring these sides. That is probably where Hunter might step in and actually take a little bit of a hit and lose an overview over the site or the map that they're playing, depending on the map that they're playing, and actually allow Mattis to go for little bit more impact and let him communicate. I know the guy talks a lot. One of those smaller events that they played and they actually won was Stake Ranked Episode 1 in Barcelona. I was there. I was interviewing the players, and it was really, really nice to see them kind of like vibing off each other, even though it was a hard event for them because they lost 2 maps to Bed Boom throughout that event. But I saw that the Nerds is like reborn, basically. That was the first event where they got him, I believe, or second. I'm not really sure, but that was a way different player than on Liquid. Like, I saw him basically shining, and that was great to see. And then 2 days later, after that event ends, there were not rumors, but news about Hunter breaking his ankle, and he cannot travel to IEM Rio. So yes, you have that S tier event. That was the first S tier event supposed to be for that G2. But they didn't really play it in full potential, right? Hunter was missing. Tak was standing in. He wasn't even in the IGL. Now they have to. They had to go to Blast Rival season. So I will still give them a leeway. But what happens on the server? Something is flawed there. And that is coming back to fundamentals, like the structure of the team. You can't just swap around roles willy-nilly, how you want. But what Hunter is doing is very rare for an IGL, and I think it's costing them because they're like kind of falling out of meta. Whatever you just said, they're predictable. They're having 1-2 punch style where they do something predictable into something even more predictable because Hunter doesn't have that allowance to call, with a bigger overview if he's just lurking, if he's not part of the pack.
Right, the big problem you have here is I'm not with Maui yet. Like, I don't totally write this lineup off, mainly for the reasons STYKO was saying here. Like, the problem they have is this, right? It's actually a problem like teams like Falcons have, which is no matter what karrigan says, the reason why you get no time is because everyone's already sick of Falcons not winning. It doesn't matter that you weren't there. Everyone's sick of them not winning, so you have to win now. Like, everyone's not going to give you another 6 months. So similarly with G2, the problem is because this roster basically had one meaningful run ever with the previous lineup when they had MOUZ, everyone's just sort of like, who gives a fuck about this team anymore? Like, remember, we've been doing this whole, like, but give Hunter time thing. He's had ages now. Like, he's had, like, more than half a year. Then you look at some of the other pieces. Some Pies has been around quite a while. He joined after the fucking player break last year, guys. Like, these people have had time. Now, here's the thing. Nertz hasn't had time, and Matisse has obviously had to change his roles. He's had to become the MOUZ of this team, and Nertz is now put in the position, which he wasn't really in Liquid, where maybe he could be a star. The problem is, look, I won't totally write off Nertz. I think he's still got some time to get together. It hasn't looked that great out the gate for me. Like, the real problem is they don't want him to be Nertz of, like, at his best in team. Look, they want him to be Ents Nertz. They want him to be heroic Nertz. That was the player that you want to sign because that's going to be your real star player, and then maybe G2 can win a tournament. I also agree on the Hunter point. The most scary thing about Hunter is this. Does anyone remember at the beginning of this year where he had, like, crazy fragging stats? Well, sadly, now it's obvious why, because he's just calling in a style where he gets to get a load of, like, favourable positions and fucking take a bunch of trade kills and stuff. Like, the problem with that is, like, most IGLs are very sacrificial. Like, if anything, they just try to set up another person on their team, and they always understand they're not going to get many frags. This is why, actually, for Hunter and when Nico goes to IGL, I'm actually still a bit skeptical they'll make it, because unfortunately, I think they have too much of a sort of I have to get mine mentality. Whereas to me, being an IGL usually is I make sure everyone else gets theirs, and I eat last in this analogy, So I think that is a problem, because if I have to say one thing about G2 is their high is very good. They've actually had both with a standing and without challenge vitality and taking them close. The problem is the floor of the team is trash too, though. Like, it's too crazy a differential. And one of the reasons why that worries me about Hunter is, to me, that implies you just lack a certain amount of control on T-side. Like, if you can control the T-side, you can grind out results. You can win when your AWPer doesn't hit the shots. You can win when there's flaws there. This team, they live and die. And by the way, if Heavy God ever has a slump, this team is done tomorrow. Like, they are just, he is keeping them alive and afloat so much, it's crazy. So I still need more from them. Like, right now, I'm not interested in them as a team. But at the same time, I'll basically give them to the end of this season. After the Major, if you haven't got it fixed by then, because you had a few months, a few tournaments, then I'm going to write you off. Okay, we've only got a little bit of time left. But one, there is another poly market I want to show you. So, obviously, we have this tournament going on, but then not too long afterwards, we have the IEM Atlanta tournament, don't we? And at that, we have this game I wanted to do here. Liquid versus Astralis. Polymarket traders have it as heavily towards Astralis, and they're at 69% to win this game. Obviously, not a lot of Liquid believers. STYKO, who do you favour in this matchup, and do you think this number is right? Is it high? Is it low? What do you think?
I'm going to keep it short. I do favour Astralis in this matchup, but 69% is too crazy for me. I would lean more like, this will be like 55-45. Liquid on the home turf. I do have a slight bias there. I'm going to give them benefit of the doubt. It's the opening game, right?
Yeah.
As well, so... for them, it will be a little bit of a, interesting point of view, because finally they have some time to, reinvent their playbook, hopefully, and kind of bring something in, because I wasn't really interested in Team Liquid. I just give Astralis the edge here. I think HooXi is... I was a hater of HooXi on G2. I like how he's calling it out.
Okay, all right. Self-admitted HooXi hater. That's funny. I think this is a little vast. The difference between them. Sure, yeah, Astralis are the favorites, but they've also been... I don't know if I want to say free fall, but the Rivals event was a fail. Like, Rivals was a total fail. To not win a single map versus G2 and Gamer Legion. Come on, like, that means you're beatable. That totally means you're beatable. So I think there's definitely value in looking at Liquid here, who, yeah, they also haven't looked too crazy either, but you would expect them to ramp up into an Atlanta event.
Yeah, I'm going to go with STYKO on this one. I do think Astralis is favoured. They are the better team thus far, but I think the number's way too crazy. Like, I actually think there's value on the Liquid side here. Again, opening match, upset potential, you studied the game. Then also, I think skill-wise, they're pretty comparable teams too. There's certainly flaws in Liquid, but I think they've got some decent players. So I don't know about this one. I actually think this is one where I do favour Astralis, but I think the number's too high. Okay. The last point of the show, and again, we haven't got loads of time, but we'll just make a little point. Luckily, it was sort of a gag point anyway, Maui. Like, we could, listen, I won't lie, if we had an extra hour, we'd do a really self-indulgent, crazy one, but we'll just make some small points. I've actually picked as my bad the crazy butthurt, how hard we live rent-free, you and me, Maui, in the minds of ZywOo fans. Holy shit balls. Because STYKO, me and Maui, at this after party for Blast Rivals, took photos with ZywOo and published them on the internet. The French fans, you wouldn't even... They were accessing new levels of cope I wasn't even aware existed, bro. They were coming with angles like, I guess ZywOo just really doesn't know who they are. Or like, oh my God, ZywOo's like Jesus. He's even able to forgive them after the sins of what they've said and done about him. By the way, making it sound like we asked for him to be killed on Twitter or something. All we've ever said, remember, was like, he's just the second best player ever. Like, that's hating, apparently, in the world of a French fan. But okay. Then the other one they had was like some shit of like that we're scum because we like, talk shit on ZywOo, but then we came up like, please sir, can I have a photo, Lord ZywOo? So I'm saying it's bad, Maui, because I'll let you guys talk first, but I've got a little bit I'll say at the end, because basically it's presented as like that. I don't know why we're just not allowed to have a photo with ZywOo for some reason. So what do you think on this, STYKO? What do you think about the fact that like we're the bad guys, the ZywOo haters, got in there and got a little fan pic, some of that shit.
I do not think ZywOo is capable of hating. He doesn't have that part of brain evolved, in my opinion. I mean, he's such a... Tell me this, like, when you took a picture, how did he behave? Was he okay with it?
Totally fine, cool? Yeah.
Did you... You're right. It's like, it's...
Super chill.
Yeah, right? And it will happen with every single player. Like, for example, me and Snappy, right? We had a beef when I was doing my first gig for Blast, and I did this, like, Snappy, I tweeted out, like, can someone tell Snappy to connect to the server or anything like that, because he was, like, terrible, right? And then they got back at me, like, how's the analyst life going? And then it was back and forth.
I like it, okay.
Basically, we were in a beef for a moment, right? It was a completely new environment for me. Like, I was never beefing with anyone. Right now, me and Snappy, when we're doing interviews at these events where we're doing, one of the best person to interview. He's always opening up. He's always like a good guy. We're dapping, he even overshares, in my opinion. Like I see like a manager of NIP in the background, like, okay, cut it, don't talk anymore. And but he is really chill about that. So whatever happens on social media, whether it's a beef, disagreement, or straight up hate, it's just going out of the window when I meet with these players. When I see even interacting between people that I thought hated each other, I'm at the event and I see them chilling and laughing and having a beer or whatever. I just love it, and I don't know why people are just exaggerating things. Like, bro, we're just human. We're happy for one another, but obviously social media is social media. Like we have to draw some point, some narrative, and that's the whole point. Let's just don't take it too seriously.
I know that. Well, Thorin and I, we can both be pretty incendiary on Twitter. I'm not even gonna try to beat around that idea. Like we are, but I think that because of the few tweets that people see and the lack of long-form content of ours, or even desks of ours that they consume, they have these caricatures of us in their heads of who we are as people, where I mean, I'm not like buddy with a lot of players or anything like that, but also I have like good standing relationships with many. So it's not like if I'm ever in a situation, there's going to be like this awkward tension. I think like there's only a couple people where I have that with, and it's like people I have outright just flamed extremely hard. Like and that's fine. Like that's fine. But like I have never flamed ZywOo exceptionally hard. That is what ZywOo fans think that I have done by listing him as the second best player of last year. Like, that's not hating. I've never hated him, but with fans, it's not even really black and white. It's like heaven or hell. Like it's more drastic. It's even deeper to them than what. Like, I'll even post a list and I'll post an hour and a half of why I reason through every single player position for my top 20, but then I hate him because he's number 2. So rent-free ZywOo fans, I got to take a picture with your GOAT, and he was happy to do it. So I'll take another one at the next time I see him. Why not?
Oh, I've got a couple of things at the end here. So first of all, the idea that like I have to hate ZywOo, it's not even true. Like, actually, I think he's one of the best players to watch and always has been. He's always been a really entertaining player. Like how smooth his game is, how he reads people's minds in the clutch, how he's always in the right place at the right time. I think that's fabulous to watch. So first of all, fuck that noise that I have to like worship everything he does. That's like saying to be a Star Wars fan, I have to like all the bad Star Wars. Why would I? Why would I, mate? Why can't I just like the really good ones and say some of them are flawed or some of them I didn't enjoy? So, first of all, fuck that noise. I've never even been vaguely close to a hater of ZywOo whatsoever. I certainly hate ZywOo fans who are really annoying, but notice they have no connection to ZywOo at all. They're just a guy who popped out and just went, I think ZywOo's the best. That's fuck all to do with ZywOo, mate. You don't get to bring him into this like I'm attacking him. I'm attacking you, motherfucker. Then secondly, this whole bullshit thing, like Zico said, of like, you actually are so fucked in the head. You think Twitter is more important than real life. I always have this thing where on Reddit people go, thing about Thorin is I really love his work on desks. I like his interviews. I like some of his YouTube content, but his Twitter, it's like, so you mean basically when you remove everything that makes me and only have text, you hate me? Then you don't hate me, you idiot. You hate the idea, you cretin. Logically, when I'm on camera, you see more of me and how I am and how I think. And in real life, that's me. That's the real me. But your logic would be that someone can't like me in real life, the real me, because of what a tweet said, which allowed you to just imagine who I am. You're mental. You're actually mental. And like STYKO says, when we go to events, I'll tell you the really cruel thing I'll tell you right now. If I was to actually bring up to ZywOo how mad his fans were, he'd chuckle along with me, bro, and go, yeah, they are a bit crazy, aren't they? He wouldn't go, no, how dare you say that one thing? Then secondly, he 100% knows who I am, you dumb fuck. I'm literally like an icon of esports. Like, one day I'll probably even have him on one of my shows, and you'll all cry your fucking eyes out, and you'll just do what you did on that Fallen episode of Snake and Banter. You'll go, wow, again, Fallen is such a kind person. He was willing to come and thought, no, Thorin's just got that pull, homie. That's it. I've got that fucking, you're trying to escape. I just pull you back with the tractor beam. That's how it works. Anyway, the last thing to say is this. They also did try to, the ultimate cope, Maui, was the idea that we, like little bitches, snuck in, pretended we never said that about ZywOo. Like, please, ZywOo. Right? They were going, I can't believe they had the gall to go up to ZywOo and ask for a picture. Who said I went up to him? Did you hear that? Think about what I just implied there. Who said I went up to him? What if I dropped this? What if I dropped this one at the end and we just end the episode here? What if after that I went out and partied with him through the night? Suck my dick. That's the end of the episode.